Welcome to Alien Whispers. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Now, let's dive into the story. The human's mycelial miracle the air on Myrvox vibrated with a low, otherworldly hum, as if the planet's core sang a mournful hymn. Towering fungal spires, their caps pulsating with bioluminescent veins, loomed over a sprawling forest of writhing mycelium. Spores drifted like sentient fireflies, glowing in hues of amethyst and jade, whispering secrets and patterns only the Silithians could once decipher. This world, a living tapestry of organic art, was now a graveyard. The Silithian civilization, renowned for weaving their lives into the planet's fungal network, lay in ruins, its glowing tendrils severed, soaked in the emerald ichor of its people, crushed under the clawed boots of the Draxx invaders, a relentless swarm that devoured worlds with cold precision. In the heart of the shattered capital, where fungal arches once hummed with life, Princess Veyra, the radiance of Myrvox, lay motionless amid the wreckage. Her translucent, pearlescent body, once a fluid shimmer that danced through the fungal canopy, was now a broken relic. A collapsing mycelial spire, obliterated by Draxx biocannons, had crushed her spine, leaving her paralyzed, a living trophy for the brutal empire. Her spirit, once a beacon of hope, teetered on the edge of despair, trapped in a body that no longer resonated with Myrvox's pulse. Her eyes, twin orbs of opalescent light that once mirrored the planet's glow, stared blankly at the drifting spores. Draxx soldiers prowled nearby, their scaly, insectoid forms casting jagged shadows across the pulsating ground. One spat a sizzling glob of venom beside her, hissing taunts at her lifeless limbs, its mandibles twitching with glee. Another leaned close, its jagged teeth bared in a cruel grin, mocking her stillness with guttural jeers. Veyra remained silent, not yielding to battle. She could no longer fight, but to the certainty of her doom. She'd overheard their guttural boasts through the fungal network's fading whispers. Her execution would be a galactic spectacle, broadcast to crush any spark of resistance across the stars. As twilight bled across the sky, painting it a feverish violet streaked with crimson, the fungal fires consumed the last remnants of Silithian grandeur. The air grew heavy, the spores trembling as if mourning. Then, a singular sound pierced the chaos, a deliberate crunch of fungal crust, followed by another, steady and unyielding. Not the screech of a Draxx warship, not the whine of a plasma lance, but something primal, grounded, human. A footfall echoed through the devastation, calm and defiant, as if the forest itself parted to welcome its bearer. A Draxx sentry spun, its spiked tail lashing. "What's that sound?" It growled, its voice a guttural rasp that grated against the planet's hum. Its comrade raised a glowing rifle, its optics scanning the spore-laden mist. From the shimmering haze emerged a figure cloaked in a tattered, obsidian cape, its edges frayed from countless battles. He moved with unhurried purpose, as if the surrounding carnage was merely a stage for his arrival. A long sword hung sheathed across his back, its hilt worn but deadly, etched with faint runes that seemed to pulse in sync with the forest. His chest plate was battered, scarred from wars unknown, and a deep scar ran from his temple to his jaw, lending him a rugged, magnetic intensity that made the spores swirl faster. The air thickened with tension, the fungal forest holding its breath. He stopped before the glowing mycelial circle where Veyra lay, the spores dancing around him like a halo. She lifted her gaze, her opalescent eyes meeting his for a fleeting moment. His eyes, a stormy gray flecked with embers of resolve, sparked a pulse of forgotten hope in her chest, as if the planet's network had woven their fates together. No words passed, only a silent, electric connection that made her heart quiver, the spores humming softly in approval. A Draxx soldier, the one who'd taunted her, spat again, its venom sizzling on the fungal floor. Reinforcements? Just one scrawny human. Harsh, clicking laughter erupted, echoing through the ruins. The man, Kael, ignored them, his gaze locked on Veyra, his presence a quiet rebellion that seemed to quiet the forest's lament. He stepped closer, then another step, and with a smooth, confident motion, drew his sword. The blade caught the bioluminescent glow, shimmering like a shard of starlight, and Veyra's breath hitched. Not from fear, but from a wild, unfamiliar thrill that warmed her core, as if the mycelium itself urged her to hope. A word she thought lost flickered to life. The first Draxx head rolled across the fungal floor, spores scattering in its wake. Silence fell like a curtain. The second Draxx collapsed, its throat slashed open, emerald ichor pooling. Chaos exploded, screams, plasma bursts, the roar of spores igniting in the air. Kael moved like a predator born of the fungal wilds, his strikes precise, his body a symphony of power and grace. Veyra watched, captivated, as he carved through her captors. His cape swirled like a shadow, his muscles flexing beneath his scarred armor, exuding a raw, human vitality that stirred something primal in her. Her heart raced, a warmth pulsing through her despite her broken body, the spores dancing faster as if cheering him on. When the last Draxx crumpled, its body sinking into the fungal floor, Kael sheathed his blade, its edge dripping emerald. He knelt beside her, his calloused hands gentle as he lifted her into his arms. Her translucent skin pressed against his chest, catching the faint scent of sweat, leather, and something uniquely human, a musk that sent a shiver through her, as if the spores themselves whispered approval. She rested her head against his shoulder, her lips grazing his scarred jaw, the contact sending a soft glow through her skin. "Why you?" she whispered, her voice fragile, trembling with the weight of her despair. His voice was low, a velvet rumble that resonated with the planet's hum. "Because no one else showed up." The words wrapped around her like a fungal tendril, warm and grounding, and the forest's oppressive gloom seemed to lift, the spores glowing brighter. Kael carried her through the ruins, his steps steady as he evaded Draxx patrols with uncanny instinct, the spores parting to shield their path like sentient guardians. They reached a hidden grotto, its entrance veiled by a curtain of pulsating fungal fronds that glowed with an otherworldly light, their tips dripping with luminescent dew. Inside, the air was cool, thick with the earthy scent of mycelium, sweet floral notes, and a faint tang of mineral-rich stone. He laid her on a bed of soft, glowing moss, its warmth cradling her like a living embrace. Igniting a chemical light, its teal glow bathed his face, rugged, scarred, with eyes that held both unyielding resolve and a shadow of buried pain, as if he carried his own unspoken losses. "Your name?" she asked, her voice fragile, her throat dry from days of silence. Kael shrugged off his armor, revealing a lean, battle-hardened frame, scars tracing stories across his skin like constellations. "Kael," he said, his tone rough yet warm, like a fire crackling in the fungal night. "Kael," she repeated, the name a soft hum in her mind, resonating with Myrvox's pulse. Not Draxx, not Silithian, human. My legs, tears spilled, silent and glowing faintly on her cheeks like tiny stars. "I'll never walk again. I'm nothing but a burden." The thought of such a half-life clawed at her, a fate worse than death. Kael's gaze held no pity, only a quiet intensity that made her pulse quicken, her skin shimmering with a soft blush. He knelt before her, his presence both commanding and tender, the spores swirling around him as if drawn to his energy. "Do you trust me, Veyra?" Her breath caught. Trust a stranger? Her people communed with the mycelial network, drawing wisdom from its ancient whispers, not blind faith. Yet his eyes, steady and burning like twin flames, stirred a longing she couldn't name, as if the planet itself vouched for him. I don't know," she stammered, her voice trembling with vulnerability, her glow pulsing faintly. Kael leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek, a faint stubble grazing her translucent skin, sending a shiver through her. "If you trust me, completely, without reservation, I can help you." His voice was a low, magnetic promise, resonating with the forest's hum, as if Myrvox itself urged her to believe. What did she have to lose? Yes, she whispered, her heart racing, her skin glowing brighter. I trust you, Kael. He nodded, his hands moving with deliberate care. One rested on her forehead, the other over her heart, his touch igniting a warmth that pulsed through her like a spore-driven breeze, vibrant and alive. Then, he leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a kiss that was both gentle and electric, sending a jolt through her core, her skin shimmering brighter. His fingers traced the delicate curve of her neck, a caress that felt like a vow woven into the planet's network, each touch sparking a soft glow across her body. Among the Silithians, such intimacy was rare, reserved for sacred communions with the mycelium, a ritual of unity and life. Yet Kael's touch was natural, human, and utterly intoxicating, awakening sensations that danced like spores in her veins, warm and vibrant. Her eyes fluttered shut, surrendering to the moment, the spores humming in approval. When they opened, she saw Heed shed his tunic, revealing a physique sculpted by survival, his scars glowing faintly under the grotto's light. Her gaze lingered on a curious, unfamiliar part of him, prominent and intriguing, its presence seeming to pulse in sync with the forest. "What is that?" she asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and nervous excitement, her skin shimmering with a soft blush that lit the grotto. Kael's lips curved into a roguish grin, his eyes glinting with mischief, the spores swirling playfully around him. "My healing instrument," he said, his tone teasing yet warm, like a spark in the dark. "Ever had a shot, Veyra?" Her eyes widened, her glow pulsing brighter, a flush spreading across her translucent form. "You mean that's going inside me?" "Only if you're ready, mi estrella," he murmured, his voice a velvet caress that echoed the forest hum, as if Myrvox itself whispered encouragement. "It won't hurt. I promise it'll feel like starlight weaving through your veins." His confidence was disarming, and Veyra, despite a flicker of apprehension, felt a thrill of anticipation, as if the mycelium urged her forward. She melted into his arms, her body yielding to his strength, the spores dancing around them like a chorus of light. Kael's healing was a dance of connection, performed twice to ensure its potency, each moment a symphony of touch and energy. His kisses, warm and deliberate, sent waves of vitality through her, rekindling nerves long dormant. His hands, strong yet gentle, traced her form with a reverence that felt like a communion with the planet itself. It was as if his human essence poured into her, mending broken pathways with a primal, electric force that pulsed in time with Myrvox's heartbeat. Her gasps were not of pain, but of liberation, her body awakening in ways that felt like a rebirth, the spores swirling faster as if celebrating. When he drew back, his breath ragged, he watched her with expectant eyes, his own glow reflecting her light. "Try it," he said softly, gesturing to her legs, his voice steady but laced with hope. Veyra hesitated, fear battling the spark within her. She focused, willing a single toe to move. Nothing. Despair loomed, but Kael's voice echoed through the mycelial hum. "Trust. Surrender." She closed her eyes, let go, and tried again. A twitch. Her eyes flew open, glowing brighter than the spores around her. Another toe moved, then a foot. With Kael's steady hands guiding her, she sat up, then stood, her legs trembling but holding her weight, the fungal floor pulsing beneath her. She took a step, then another, her feet sinking into the soft mycelium, the spores dancing in joy. "I'm walking," she gasped, tears of joy streaming down her face, glowing like tiny stars. The forest seemed alive, colors sharper, the hum of spores clearer, Kael's scent intoxicatingly vivid, like earth and fire mingled with the planet's essence. "My sense is they're alive," she murmured, turning to him, her skin radiating light. "Kael, human men are miraculous. Your women must worship this healing power." Kael chuckled, a low, husky sound that sent a shiver through her, scratching his neck with a sheepish grin. It takes faith, surrender, and a touch of human magic. Our women? They're, let's say, particular about their remedies. Veyra laughed, a bright, melodic sound that echoed through the grotto, resonating with the planet's pulse, her spirit reborn. The spores swirled around them, as if Myrvox itself celebrated her revival. Word of Kael's miraculous healing spread through the Draxx network like wildfire through the fungal canopy. A lone human, curing the incurable with intimate touch. General Vornax, a brutal strategist with a mind as sharp as his claws, saw opportunity. The war on Myrvox had maimed many of his elite female warriors, the Draxx Furies, their bodies broken by the campaign's ferocity. He dispatched them, led by Commander Zethra, a one-armed, scarred warrior with a limp, her face a map of plasma burns, to seize Kael's power for the Empire. Their ship crashed into the fungal forest with a thunderous roar, shaking the canopy and scattering spores like a storm. "Find the human," Zethra snarled, her cybernetic claw gleaming in the bioluminescent light, its edges pulsing with menace. "His power is ours." Kael and Veyra felt the tremor, the spores quivering in alarm, their hum turning discordant. "Guests," Kael said, sharpening his blade with a roguish grin, the spores glinting off its edge. Veyra, wielding a makeshift spear of hardened mycelium, its tip glowing with stored energy, stood ready, her enhanced senses screaming danger, her skin pulsing with determination. The Furies stormed the grotto, a terrifying whirlwind of metal, scales, and scars, their cybernetic limbs whirring and sparking. Zethra's claw pointed at Kael, her single eye burning with fury. "Heal us, human." It was a command, not a request, her voice a guttural hiss that clashed with the forest's hum. They lunged, energy nets crackling, plasma hooks gleaming, their movements desperate yet deadly. Kael dodged with preternatural grace, but they were relentless, their pain fueling their ferocity. Veyra, no longer a victim, leaped into the fray, her movements fluid and powerful, her spear flashing like a comet through the spore-filled air. "Keep your claws off him," she roared, her glowing eyes blazing like twin stars, the mycelium pulsing in sync with her fury. The grotto became a battlefield, clashing metal, sizzling energy, primal shouts, spores swirling in a chaotic dance. Kael and Veyra fought back-to-back, a human and a Silithian against a dozen scarred Furies, their bodies a testament to war's toll. Zethra cornered Kael, her claw sparking with lethal intent. "Cooperate, or I'll tear you apart." Kael parried, sparks flying, the spores igniting in bursts of light. "Stop!" he bellowed, his voice cutting through the chaos, resonating with the forest hum like a thunderclap. All froze, even Veyra, the spores pausing in midair. He lowered his sword, his gaze sweeping the Furies' pain-twisted faces, their eyes reflecting years of torment. "I'll heal you all," he said calmly, his voice steady as the planet's pulse. "But there's a condition." Zethra's eye narrowed, her claw twitching. "What game is this, human?" "No game," Kael replied, his tone unyielding. "The Draxx hegemony ends its conquests, its slavery, its destruction. Seek peace. Repair the damage you've caused across the stars." The Furies laughed, their guttural cackles echoing through the grotto, incredulous. "Ask a predator to change its nature." One scoffed, her prosthetic leg grinding. "It's my only term," Kael said, unshaken, his eyes burning with conviction. "Refuse, and you'll stay trapped in your broken bodies, forever bound by pain." Zethra studied him, her gaze flickering to her warriors, their desperation palpable. Living maimed was a living death. "And if we agree and betray you?" she asked slyly, her claw glinting. Kael's grin was roguish, his eyes glinting with mischief, the spores swirling playfully around him. "My healing has side effects, like a sudden distaste for tyranny and a craving for compassion. Call a human quirk." Veyra stifled a giggle, the spores dancing around her as Kael winked, his charm disarming even in the heat of conflict. Zethra weighed her options, her claw twitching. Killing him was easy but costly. They'd lose the cure, and her warrior's pain would persist. "Fine, human," she growled, her voice a reluctant rumble. "We accept your absurd terms. Now line up, sisters. Trust and surrender," he says. The spores hummed in approval, as if Myrvox itself endorsed the pact. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. One by one, the Furies approached Kael, their scarred faces wary but desperate. Each touch, each connection, mirrored Veyra's experience. A surge of energy, a mending of flesh and spirit, as if the mycelial network channeled his power, amplifying its reach. His hands, strong yet gentle, traced their forms with a reverence that softened their hardened expressions. Their rage melted, replaced by wonder. Some wept, their tears glowing like Veyra's. Others laughed, flexing limbs long dead, the spores swirling in celebration. Zethra, last in line, stepped forward, her limp heavy, her single eye wary. When Kael finished, her arm was restored, her limp gone, her face unscarred. She flexed her new arm, the spores dancing around her, and her gaze was thoughtful, almost reverent. "You've changed more than our bodies," she murmured, her voice softer, as if seeing the universe anew. Kael smirked, the spores glinting off his blade. "Side effects, as promised." "General Vornax won't like this," Zethra said, a new fire in her voice, the spores humming with her resolve. "Good," Kael replied, his grin unwavering. The Furies, healed and transformed, returned to the Draxx capital not as conquerors, but as agents of change, their bodies whole and their hearts shifted by Kael's touch. In Vornax's obsidian throne room, a cavern of jagged metal and glowing conduits, they confronted him. "The hegemony's tyranny ends today," Zethra declared, her voice clear and firm, backed by her sisters, their scars gone but their resolve ironclad. Vornax's roar of betrayal shook the chamber. "Treason," he bellowed, his massive frame rising, claws gleaming. But the Furies were ready, their newfound strength and purpose of force he couldn't comprehend. The battle was swift and epic, the Furies fighting not for conquest, but for freedom, their movements fluid and inspired, the air thick with the hum of their resolve. Zethra, with a deft strike, disarmed Vornax, his massive form crumpling to his knees. "Why?" he growled, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Because there's a better way to live than crushing others," Zethra said, her voice steady. "A human taught us that." The Draxx hegemony didn't collapse, it transformed. Under Zethra and the Council of Enlightened Furies, it became a force for peace and reconstruction, its warships repurposed to rebuild shattered worlds. On Myrvox, from the ruins of Veyra's fungal palace rose a new sanctuary, a galactic haven of healing, its walls woven from living mycelium, pulsing with the planet's heartbeat. At its heart, Dr. Kael, with Veyra ever by his side, tended to wounded women from every corner of the galaxy, their injuries both physical and spiritual. The spores amplified his healing, carrying his legend across the stars, the human healer, the miracle man. At night, Veyra found Kael gazing at the stars through the glowing fungal canopy, his face etched with exhaustion but lit by a quiet resolve. "Tired?" she asked, her head resting on his shoulder, her fingers tracing the scar on his jaw, her skin pulsing with soft light that made the spores dance. A gentle warmth radiated from her, a subtle glow beneath her translucent skin hinting at the new life stirring within her, a secret gift from their bond, carried in harmony with Myrvox's pulse. Kael chuckled, his voice warm, a low rumble that resonated with the forest hum. The galaxy's full of complicated women needing a touch of healing. Veyra's laugh was melodic, teasing, the spores swirling around them like a chorus of light celebrating their unspoken future. "Lucky for them, you're a master of trust and surrender, and soon, a father." He kissed her, his lips warm against hers, the forest humming in harmony, its glow reflecting their growing bond and the life they'd sparked together. The universe remained vast and perilous, but thanks to one human who dared to show up when no one else did, it was a little brighter, a little warmer, and infinitely more captivating. Myrvox's fungal heart pulsed stronger, its spores carrying a new song, a song of healing, hope, and the strange, miraculous power of a human's touch. Want to join the healing team? Drop a comment with your credentials, and a Draxx ship will swing by to whisk you to Myrvox. Countless women across the galaxy await your touch. Welcome to your new calling.